93 degrees right now in Atlanta. So what's happening up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, this is falling as snow, then it's hitting a warmer layer above freezing, so it's melting into rain. And as it hits the surface, it's cooler at the surface. So even though it's liquid, not too far up, it's turning back into ice. Or on those branches, it falls as rain, and then it freezes on those branches. So that's what we call freezing rain, and that's what we're going to be seeing because those temperatures are right at that freezing mark. This precipitation continues for the next several hours. We're not going to see a steady, heavy rate for the rest of the afternoon, but we'll continue to see that chance through the afternoon. Then it starts to taper off, but not until 11 p.m. And although the precipitation will be over at 11 p.m., the threat is not. The roads will stay very dangerous through the evening and overnight, and those power outage numbers will continue to increase as the ice on those branches gets thicker and thicker. To add insult to injury, tomorrow will be windy, so those really heavy branches and those limbs that are coated in ice and that didn't finish melting, those will break off as well. So I do think we're going to see those power outage numbers really start to increase, especially as we head into the evening. Let me go back here because I want to show you the potential ice. This is disruptive to significant ice. So wherever you see pink, that's about a quarter of an inch of ice, possibly some locally higher amounts. This is additional ice on top of what we've seen. So as you can see, it's scattered pretty good across the metro area. Right now, the thinking is along I-85, maybe around Hall County near the Gainesville area is where we could see some of the highest ice totals. So wherever we see the highest ice totals, that's where we're going to see the highest power outages for the most part, give or take. So certainly, again, charge those devices, prepare not only for a power outage, but a prolonged power outage. What does that mean? That means it's going to take a lot longer to get your power back on than it normally does because we're going to see more people without power, but also it's harder for those power crews to get to where you are, to get to those power lines, and it's going to take them longer to get from one call to the next. So make sure you are ready if you lose power for a couple days, unfortunately. If you've ever lived through an ice storm, you've lived it, you'll never forget, and hopefully you've taken those precautions so that doesn't happen. Personally, I turn my heat up a little higher in my home just in case we lose power. Here's a look at those the ice impacts with that amount of ice. About a quarter of an inch to half an inch of ice, which is what we are forecasting for much of the metro area. It's when you see tree branches come down, they sag, they break, they're really heavy. I know a quarter of an inch, you go like that, it doesn't look like a lot, but on a tree limb, especially those smaller limbs, that's super, super heavy, especially when it's coating the entire limb. That's when you start to see them sag, then eventually they break. With this much ice, you see some power outages, and it is dangerous travel. Now, some areas are going to see an additional half an inch of ice. That is significant. That's when you see trees come down. That's when you see widespread power outages. And that's when you see what we call impossible travel. So we go from dangerous travel to impossible travel. It is just impossible to go out on the roads. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. Again, this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And we're going to have much more on wind. We expect this ice to finally melt coming up.